6:30 in the morning is not most people's idea of a great time to get going. But if there's a radio programme to put out at 7, someone's got to do it. So I suppose an element of passion would be useful.
I'm really passionate about radio, so I'd be up at any time to do it. You know, you could tell me to be here in the middle of the night and I'd be here.
It takes a little getting used to. And of course, when your alarm clock goes off at around 5:45 in the morning, some days it's a bit more welcome than others.
Breakfast radio, for me, is probably the most exciting because there's so much pace to it, you know, and it's also a privilege that people invite me into their homes, into their kitchens, their bathrooms while they're shaving, their cars while they're driving to work. That for me is a real privilege.
We're basically waking up the community. We're the first voices that they hear. So that's something that, you know, we don't take lightly.
Being present at the community's awakening is a sobering thought. Thank goodness these people take it seriously, especially with the amount of information that needs to be given out, including the all-important weather forecast.
There's so much information that you have to take in the morning when you get in. The first thing I do is I check the weather and I edit that down into like manageable bite-sized sentences when I'm reading it out. So that's the first thing I do. I edit things down so it's kind of pacey and we get it out quick.
That might be a priority for Ben, but with Davina there are others.
Okay, first and foremost, I switch on the kettle. This is a very important part of breakfast, I think, making coffee.
It's also a nice thing in the morning to have a coffee with the person that you're working with and just sit and relax for a second and enjoy a cup of coffee together. It's almost like a ritual, I suppose.
Ben and I are, you know, a little coffee snobbish, if I can use the phrase. We even bring in our ground coffee. We've got cafetiere. It's something that we look forward to. It kind of helps you sort of wake up into the day.
Once awoken, there must be some important things to do, surely. Might there be some listeners out there? If so, what's on offer?
Obviously, we aim to inform them, we aim to entertain them. Radio Gibraltar is very much about the music, but we're very much about the community. So we try to include special features, things that might be of interest, that will basically guide them in their day as well. But we make sure that it's also light and that we don't overload them. You know, first thing in the morning, the last thing you want is too much speech. So, yeah, we try to get the balance right.
Kind of a funnel, really, a funnel for information. So we've got Facebook open, Twitter open, our emails open, so we can contact our listeners, and listeners can contact us. Then I've got like maybe a selection of, say, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 websites that I'm constantly looking at for ideas and for stories and things that are happening. We've got the Frontier Q camera, we've got Sky News on, so there's a ton of information coming in all the time. My eyes were never in one place the whole time. I'm always like darting around, looking at the clock, looking at something here, looking at something there. And so my job really is to kind of bring all these things together and filter what needs to go out on air and what I think people want to hear about.
I'm involved in the sort of news production, so I make sure that the news is in order. You know, I'll go online, check if anything new might have happened overnight, follow it up if that's the case, reformat headlines. It's obviously about making the bulletin as well appropriate for radio, so shortening stories, editing clips, and making sure that people get that information and that it's correct, of course.
Yeah, I try to deliver this information in a fun way that's going to make people smile. Also, we have to deliver lots of information, and it's all about news and things like that as well. So you need to find that kind of balance between kind of making people smiling and delivering that important information that people want to know about in the morning, first thing in the morning. If you miss one link, if you miss one thing, if I miss the traffic, or if I miss learn something new, which is something we do at 20 to 8 every morning. If you miss that, you spend the next hour trying to catch up with the rest of the show. So you need to be kind of on the ball and you need to know exactly what is going where. You're hitting these time markers, and people, you don't think so, but people time their mornings by what's happening on the radio at that time. So if the 8:30 news is on and you're still not outside the house, when usually you're in the car at 8:30, you know you're late. You're thinking, oh, I've got to go. So you need to make sure you're hitting these timings properly and exactly so that people can go about their lives normally, and it's something that they don't have to worry about, something less to worry about in the morning.
So how can presenters avoid losing sight of what listeners really want to hear and also enjoy hearing?
I used to love radio. When I was working on building sites or behind the bar or anywhere like that, I'd always have the radio on or headphones on, and primarily I'm a listener. I'll always consider myself a listener of radio before anything else. So I'm always thinking about what a listener might be doing at that time. I know, for instance, that in the morning between 7 and 9, people might be in a mad rush, so they might not have the time to get involved and join in any of the features like we do on Facebook or on Twitter. For instance, on Friday mornings we do the One Word Friday feeling, which is how you're feeling on a Friday in one word, and that's why it's one word, because, you know, it's quick, it's easy, boom.
The breakfast show has been running with 2 presenters for a while now. Today it's Davina's turn, with alternative days being shared with the long-time presenter Clifton Psaila. Does this system work? How important is the relationship?
It's hugely important. Yeah, it comes across on air. If you've got good chemistry with somebody and you make each other smile and laugh, you're going to make the listeners laugh as well. People like to listen in on other people's conversations, you know, and it's just I think it's human nature. So when 2 people are having a fun, happy conversation on the radio, people like to hear that, I think.
This is something that was brought in a few years ago. A positive change, obviously, with a view to improving the output is very, very beneficial, because there's interaction, there's natural interaction, and that is really something that the listener appreciates, because we can talk about things that are important to us, that might have had an impact on us, and people can relate to that. And it's that they really take with them, and it's that draws them in and makes them part of that sort of radio club.
Talking of clubs, what exactly is the much-renowned Breakfast Club?
Well, it's just another avenue, another platform of really reaching out to the listener and bringing them into our environment.
You just need to say, I'd like to be part of the Breakfast Club, and that's it. You're in. Just phone me up, send a quick message, say I want to be in, and that's it. That was brilliant when we got so many kind of applications for the Breakfast Club stuff, and we can call on these people at any moment. You know, they're definitely part of the Breakfast Club and the Breakfast family. We've got a ton of Breakfast Club members who are becoming mini celebrities, really, because they get mentioned so much on the radio and they get involved. Yeah, and that really makes you smile. We've got Jimmy, who's a big Breakfast Club member, and he went for it must have been about 3 or 4 months, where he sent in a picture every day of himself wearing a different hat. And that was it. No reason, just and so he became Jimmy, the man of many hats.
So having started such a questionable club, does that make Ben the club president?
Chairman, I think, but only because I started this crazy idea. That's all.
From questionable clubs to a suspect sense of humour, how best to describe Ben's idea of a joke?
Hang on a sec. It can be quite cheesy. I don't know. Sometimes I'll go for the easy joke, but that's because it's there. It's there on a plate in front of you, and you have to do it. Yeah, it's got to be done. I do go for some cheesy jokes sometimes, or malahe.
I would describe Ben very much as a very laid-back person, very natural on air as well. What you see is what you get with Ben. Nobody can try to be Ben. He's got that sort of unique personality that I think comes through on the airwaves.
Vying for space on the airways is, of course, the more serious matter of the news. How do the co-presenters manage the required balance?
That perhaps is where the challenge comes in with Christine and myself, because we do the sort of more serious parts of the morning, be it the news, but it doesn't mean that we sort of have to fit into that particular formula or equation. We can still be light-hearted when the right moment arises. I always find as well that it's those moments when you're very human and you're really putting something across that's personal, that people relate to best. And I'm stopped in the streets at time and people say, oh, how did that go? And I'm really puzzled at first. How do you know? That's actually quite personal. Like, Davina, you said it on radio this morning.
Such are the dangers of a well-communicated community, which has also been impacted by social media.
you can kind of put pictures up on Facebook or on Twitter, for instance, which is something we do, especially on a Monday, ask people to send in pictures of things that they've been doing over the weekend. So it kind of opens up radio into another kind of dimension, really, I suppose. The thing about breakfast is you've got to be current, and there's information coming in all the time from all these different sources. So you need to be flexible enough to maybe think, right, I'm going to drop this thing and pick up this instead, and you've got to be able to move with what's going on around the world and around Gibraltar, of course. You could kind of get into the habit of relying on social media and relying on tweets coming in and Facebook messages and things like that. And also, if you're not getting that feedback on social media and on email, it can be a bit disheartening for the person on the radio. You think, oh, nobody's listening. Well, they are, but there's just no time to get in touch, or it's not engaging enough, which is understandable. Some things just aren't engaging, and you try and give it some legs and give it a bit of life, but if that topic of conversation doesn't work, it doesn't work, yeah? But yeah, I think the trick is not to rely too much on it, but it's nice to have that balance, and it's nice to have that go-to, and it's nice that so many people have so many different avenues of getting in touch with you these days.
So after such a busy morning at the helm of the breakfast show, what next?
Well, as soon as you come off air at 10 o'clock, you're already thinking about what's going to be on the show the next day. So you're already online looking up what's happening in the world, the next day. You're looking at articles, you're preparing your competition, you're doing any pre-production that you might think of. For example, the other day there was the One Direction song, which sounds incredibly like Def Leppard's Pour Some Sugar on Me. So that I mashed those two together. So I prepared that like the day before.
And just in case nobody's noticed, Ben is not sitting down. Not common practice in radio studios. So why?
Well, he didn't like to eat glass. It's easier to deliver, and it's more expressive, you know. I stand up and I talk a lot with my hands and things like that. Say, for example, if I'm reading the weather, I'll be pointing at a fake weather map that's behind me. There is no map. There's no map there, but I'm always pointing at something behind me or anything like that. So it's quite it's easier to kind of express yourself if you're standing up, and also that energy comes out as well. If you're sitting down, you're a bit more kind of...
Okay, so we stand. Any theatrical influences, a yearning to perform?
I wouldn't call radio a performance as such. If you're talking to somebody in the street, you wouldn't be performing in front of them. You'd just be chatting to them normally, as you do. You want radio to be kind of, because it's a one-on-one thing, it's an intimate thing, you want it to be more kind of casual and more, for any radio presenter, you've kind of got to be a caricature of yourself. Whereas on the radio, you need to kind of get yourself out there. So yeah, it's I'd say like a caricature of myself.
And the principal objective in the mind of the presenter's caricature?
To make people smile in the morning. That's what it's all about.